Sign up today for a 7-day free trial at alerts.chartguys.com. Hey everyone, checking in on the cryptocurrency space. Before we get into it, want to say two things. Number one, appreciate everybody's comments. The crypto video from Friday probably had the best compilation of comments that we've had in a very long time. That's very motivating for me, so I appreciate that. Number two, everybody's talking about this Btc Usd Shorts Chart. What's going on? What does it mean? Doesn't mean anything to me. So why is that the case? If this information, if this chart showed us this is the amount of Bitcoin that have to be bought on the market to be covered, that would be useful information. Instead, what it is telling us is this is how many Bitcoin have to be given back to Bitfinex to cover short positions. The difference is you can claim your short position with coins that you don't have to buy on the market. So let's just do an example. I go to the lake house and I'm away from home. I leave my hard wallet at home. I've got 100 Bitcoin on my hard wallet. And this crazy move happens in Bitcoin. And I'm unable to sell. I don't have my hard wallet. I'm away for the weekend. What do? I can hedge my long position by going bearish. So let's just say I short 25 Bitcoin at 12,000, 25 at 12,500, 25 at 13, 25 at 13.5. My average is now 100 Bitcoin short at 12,750. And we start pulling back. So I essentially locked in my gains by shorting the exact same amount of my long as I have for long positions. Now I get home 2 days later, back to my house from my vacation, and I want to cover my short and lock in that profit. I can take the Bitcoin off of my hard wallet, put it on Bitfinex, and then just give that to Bitfinex and say, here you go. Here's the 100 Bitcoin that I borrowed from you and sold into the market and used to short to hedge my position. I don't have to buy anything. We're squared away, and that's that. So this happened, this dump, and it was a 20,000 plus coin dump. It's not a dump. It was claimed, and I can say that very confidently because it happened in 1 minute. I'm not going to be able to, there it is. It happened in 1 minute. And if this were to happen in 1 minute and there was actually Bitcoin being bought and shorts being covered on an open market, there would have been a huge move up. And because there was no huge move, we know that these coins were just claimed and it's not really useful information to us. So more and more people are going to become aware of this. Clearly, there's been a lot of confusion around this chart, and more influencers like Nugget's News are setting the record straight and, telling people this doesn't mean necessarily what you thought it meant. And for me, as soon as I found that out, thanks to one of our members, asking Bitfinex and their support team answering that, because of that, this chart means way less to me. And I don't look at it that much anymore ever since I found that out. So checking things out. So after a few days of the most likely scenario playing out time and time again, the most likely scenario that I thought was coming did not play out this time. I was looking for a 12-hour higher low compared to 10,300, and we just dropped down and broke that support level. So fortunately, it was one of my favorite kinds of mistakes, the kind of mistake or the kind of call being wrong where I lose $0.00. And the reason is I didn't see any entry that I liked to play off of 10,300 support to look for that higher low to form. And the reason that is because I want to see conditions oversold when we're heading towards a key support. That increases the odds to me that the support is going to be more likely to hold. So these hourly bounces on the way down were cooling off RSI levels, so we never got really oversold as we were heading down towards 10,300, and that just kept me patiently waiting for a $10,000 flush, which we did end up getting, and we didn't get a whole lot of follow through. So where we stand right now, let's talk big picture, daily time frame. As far as I'm concerned, we're still in a daily uptrend. Some people might argue that, but just with my style of technical analysis, every single day since our top has been a lower high now for 5 days. This is all the same period of consolidation. Someone might say, well, that's a lower high and lower low on the daily. For me, it's not. It's still the same period of consolidation. I'm still looking for a higher low compared to 8,019, and then I'll look for a bounce on the daily and a lower high to form, and likely a tightening range. Has our bottom been hit? No indication that that has been the case. There's no indication that our bottom has been hit just yet. Why did we not see more of a flush on the break of 10,000? A number of reasons, in my opinion. The first reason is the hourly RSI was down in the mid-20s, and the 15-minute RSI, when that support level broke, was down in the teens. So if short-term RSI levels are overextended, we're not going to get a ton of follow-through And the other scenario is there weren't a ton of shorts, or I should say there weren't a ton of stop losses that triggered on that 10,000 level. It's almost the kind of scenario where if anybody was playing a support, they were probably playing 10,300 support for their stops and not necessarily 10,000 psychological. So I don't think there were a lot of stops under that level. But knowing where the short-term RSI levels were, I started scaling in higher than I would have otherwise. So I got filled one Bitcoin order and one Ethereum order, and I'm currently in those positions right now. And we are attempting a bounce, and I may just look and lock in short term. It's nothing huge. It'll just be a half day maker or so, but I'll lock that in just looking for an hourly lower high because I didn't get the full position size that I want because the RSI levels didn't get as extreme as I wanted. But no big deal as the bounce is underway right now. And the question is, can the bulls change the 15-minute trend? We're battling the 15-minute exponential resistance right now. If the bulls change the 15-minute trend on Bitcoin, we zoom out to the hourly. Then we'll just look for an hourly lower high. We know the zoom out game if you've been watching this channel for any prolonged period of time. Change the 15-minute trend. We're just going to look for an hourly lower high, an hourly exponential resistance. Change the hourly trend. We're just going to look for a 4-hour lower high and 4-hour exponential resistance. The bulls have a lot of time frames where trend changes are needed on for us to have belief that this is our temporary bottom. The hourly time frame could be a bear flag. We could drop down to lower lows under 9,953, which is our current low. I'll be watching for 4-hour oversold conditions if that does happen. That 4-hour RSI down at the low got just above 30, real close to oversold, and I will look to exit my positions on the short-term bounce and have all cash patiently waiting in case we see another leg down. That being said, knowing that I'm anticipating a daily support level to be found and for a bounce to look for a daily lower high sometime in the next day or two, another scenario would be just setting a stop loss at break even for these small positions that I have and hoping the bulls are able to change trends on some of these time frames, 15-minute, hourly, in order to get some more prolonged bounce follow through. So we are now looking at weekly consolidation as well. And anything on the weekly for Bitcoin above 7,427 is a weekly higher low due to the size of the upper wick and how much we have pulled back at this point. Once we establish a bottom of this pullback, wherever that is, whether it's at 9,950 or whether it's at 9,100, we're going to be looking to trade within this range for a while. There's a huge range that we're going to be watching, and we're going to be watching for our weekly high, our weekly higher low, and then a weekly lower high. I don't expect cryptocurrency to see a ton of volatility, or at least Bitcoin, in the next, once we find the bottom, I don't expect a ton of volatility for the next, potentially the next 4 to 6 weeks. So knowing that, I will slow down my aggressiveness because less volatility and tightening ranges means trade less aggressively. If we get that action on Bitcoin and that tightening range and weekly range pretty established, that's the kind of environment where we're going to be watching the altcoins to see if the altcoins can play a bit of catch up and to see if profits from Bitcoin go other places. So most important thing for me short term, 15-minute trend. And if we change the 15-minute trend, we keep zooming out. Otherwise, if we get another leg down, I will be looking to scale in 4-hour oversold conditions, and I'll be using the BTC LT or the LTC BTC and the ETH BTC charts as well to determine who I want to be playing. And I will be playing more than just Bitcoin if we do get those 4-hour oversold conditions. So Litecoin at this point, solid move the past couple days, but it was just a daily lower high. And we knew that was a likely scenario because of how significantly we pulled back and how much follow through the bulls would have needed. But right now the range to be watching is our low, our high of the bounce, 136.81. And now the bulls must hold 109.09 for a daily higher low. And if we were to get bounce follow through, we have a daily equilibrium on Litecoin that we'll be keeping an eye on. Remember, weekly consolidation is already underway, and anything above 97.05 is a weekly higher low with weekly exponential support on watch as a potential visual guide. The LTC BTC chart. So 4-hour trends have changed on the Litecoin and Ethereum Bitcoin pairing, which means zoom out to the daily. And we know the daily charts are just going to form lower highs. Here's LTC BTC rejecting from daily exponential resistance. And now, as I said for the last week plus, we need a 4-hour trend change before I have any interest in these names. Now we need a daily trend change if we're going to see any kind of follow through. So a daily higher low and higher high will be needed for any kind of significant follow through on LTC, BTC. That's the next criteria that the bulls need to follow through with. ETH USD. So on the daily time frame, we still have support holding. And obviously Bitcoin has dropped to a lower low. So that's a notable difference. High, low, lower high, and now a higher low. And the reason we're holding that low is because we got that bull break on the 4-hour time frame. In the last video, we drew the little head and shoulders pattern of what would be needed to change the 4-hour trend. So now that ETH BTC has changed that 4-hour, we zoom out to the daily. We know anything under 2987 is just a daily lower high. Have to change the daily trend in order to look for any significant follow through from here. So we got the scenario where ETC BTC changed that 4-hour trend, but the Ethereum bulls would have preferred for Bitcoin to hold 10,300 and to give us that 12-hour equilibrium. Why I say that is because this bull break that's occurred on ETH BTC is mostly due to Ethereum not pulling back as hard as Bitcoin. So rather than seeing bigger gains to the upside for the bulls, it's almost just seeing less losses to the downside. So ETH is still pulling back over the last 8 hours, but it's the ETH BTC chart going up because it's not pulling back as much as Bitcoin. So it wasn't the ideal scenario for the bulls, but they'll certainly take it with the bull break of the Bitcoin pairing. So my entry on Ethereum, I had one order fill, like I said, just under 280. I had other orders scaled in through the 270s into the 260s. Those did not fill. Another little note when I'm trading, if I'm looking for an oversold bounce and I have my orders, let's just use an example. I have my order at 279, 277, 275, 273. And we pull back like this on Ethereum and I get one fill and I've got 4 other orders in the 270s waiting. As soon as you start to see this bounce, I pull my topmost orders and I remove them. Why would I do that? Because the RSI levels are cooling off. And if we're going to break 278.65 and see another leg down, I don't want to get filled right after that level breaks. Because the RSI has cooled off on the shorter term timeframes, we could get more bearish follow through than we would have anticipated initially. The scenario, if we drop to a lower low, will be different than this scenario right here, and the RSI being the biggest difference. So when RSI levels cool off, I readjust where my bids are set. It's not just a set it and forget it for me with bids, because these little moves change the makeup of the short-term technicals. XRP USD, bears still in control, lower high and lower low on the daily. Support was 39 cents. And actually take that back, it is a double bottom still. So 39 is holding, and our most important resistance is 429. That's the range to be watching right now, and we're patiently waiting for a break of that range. Bears certainly have favor as we're much closer to a bear break than we are to a bull break. We've got a 4-hour lower high mixed in there, and essentially we're either going to see a break of the 4-hour lower highs or we're going to see a bear break of 39. If we break 39, the weekly uptrend level is 3699. That is the must hold for the weekly uptrend to remain intact. Big red flag if that level were to be lost. Binance continuing to show weakness as well. Anything under 3580 is now a daily lower high, and we're looking down at support at this point of 3168. Excuse me. 3168, that actually just broke. So 31 and 30 are the next two psychological levels as weekly consolidation is underway, and the bulls must hold 2872 to keep the weekly uptrend intact. Otherwise, monthly consolidation will be underway. So not confident just yet that we have found a bottom. This bounce is not strong. The 15-minute trend has not changed. The 15-minute exponential moving averages are still resistance. I will be interested on another leg down. I will be scaling my orders in to be looking for 4-hour oversold conditions entering in the 9,000 range. So I assume that we're going to find a temporary bottom before we speak next, which will be tomorrow, about 24 hours from now. And again, scale out game or zoom out game. Have to change trends on all these time frames. Right now, it looks like Bitcoin is forming an hourly lower high at 10,432. That would be our new resistance level as we head back down towards recent supports. So I appreciate you watching. Do good things out there. We'll check back in tomorrow. Congrats to the bears. If you are looking bearish at this point, you're either already comfortably riding some profitable positions, and congrats to the bears that did get in for that. Otherwise, I do not like any bearish entries without a 4-hour lower high. So if I'm sitting here saying, man, I wish I had gotten some bearish entries, I'm not going to be entering down here. I'm going to be entering on a 4-hour lower high. Thanks again. So one of the first major projects we're going to be working on is building raised beds in this general area. And going to have to fence it off, but the game plan will be to essentially shave off the top few inches of this sod and flip it over onto itself, and we're going to make a worm lasagna basically. So we're going to do that, and then we'll do a layer of manure, and we'll do a layer of some wood chips. Going to go around the yard and collect all the rotting logs that have mycelium already growing on them, bury those logs in there with the dirt. We'll get a bunch of leaves, and I'm definitely going to have a bunch of leaves to get in the fall, and do a layer of leaves, and then over the winter have that bed already established and put some cover crop on it, whether it's some winter peas or something along those lines, to fix nitrogen into the soil, and to their roots also create little airways and waterways that make the soil healthy. There's essentially trying to build up a colony of beneficial bacteria, and you could compare it similarly to your insides in the sense that, you know, are you going to start with a fresh stomach and throw food in there and hope for it to digest? Or are you going to build up the beneficial bacteria in your belly and then put some food in? So that's the goal with letting the soil have all winter to do its thing. So we'll get some secondhand wood from a sawmill and make those beds out, and then put wood chips in the paths in between, and then fence it off eventually. So we'll start with this space and then expand it to other spaces. I love watching the crows and the hawks battle it out. And move on to other spaces from there. So the process now is getting, you know, a dump truck of wood chips delivered, a dump truck of manure. You can generally find free manure out there, but you do want to make sure that the horses aren't being pumped full of pharmaceuticals and all that stuff, because it will end up in their manure. And leaves, I'm going to go out and steal a bunch of people's leaves bags when those are out on the side of the road. And there's some big trees, probably 20 years old, that have been cut up from when they cleared all this land, and those logs are all up back here, and so I'm going to collect those, and I'll keep you all posted on the process. It's probably going to be multiple weeks doing everything real slow and no rush on anything, which is nice and convenient.